Welcome to Framework. We're talking about Alien Romulus today. I'm John, one of the hosts of Framework. With me, as always, is the other host, Al. How are you today?
I am pretty good. I'm realizing now we should have come up with a version of Al that was AI and doing a conceit where I was the synthetic on this podcast.
I don't know that our long form bits are us at our best. I don't know.
Oh no, we never do that. But just I guess by way of a critique that it seems like it's part of the Alien formula now that you have to hold off the reveal of who is the android for a while, and to just lesser and lesser effect each time.
Well, I like that they didn't do that. In Romulus, we're talking about Alien Romulus today, and with us, returning to the program, David Sarnecki. Welcome.
If you guys find what you're looking for in this podcast, does that mean we get full shares?
There you go. There is a short form bit.
I think it's time we discuss the bonus situation.
It's a quote from the movie. We can get away with that.
Yeah. It's a callback to a line from the original movie that makes sense in context.
If you love quotes from alien movies, I got the movie for you. Oh boy.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know. This is the seventh proper Alien film, not counting AVP or AVP Requiem, as which you shouldn't.
That you're gonna thumb your nose at, but okay.
Yeah,
that's where the line
I'm
is.
fine with that.
Good to know.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to be put in a position where I'm defending Alien versus Predator Requiem, but I don't know that it has that much less integrity, or it's that much worse of a movie than Prometheus or Alien Resurrection.
Prometheus has integrity, so much integrity.
Don't put me with him. That's a bit much.
You're right. You know what? I shouldn't counter Prometheus' integrity because its problem is a lack of brains.
Yes, that's true.
And that's trying to be a very, very smart movie where people are being very, very dumb.
Oh, it thinks it's so deep and so smart, and the themes are so incredible. It thinks highly of itself.
Yeah.
But this movie, Alien Romulus.
What's great, we've talked about in other contexts. The great thing about Alien and Aliens, I suppose, is how there are smart themes and ideas there, but it carries itself with that blue collar vibe, and it's not pretentious. And Prometheus, I think, gets that so wrong by trying to do the smart version of Alien, which is already the smart version of a simple, if not dumb, concept.
It does have open contempt for the intellectuals at the center of it, though.
It's been a while now.
Yeah, they're real wrong. They are incorrect about what they are what they believe about life and the universe and everything. They got it real wrong in that because it's about nothing. There's no meaning to anything. It's very
the only blue collar characters in that movie are technically the heroes.
Yeah, Idris Elba. He's one of the most likable guys.
It's probably the closest you get to the space trucker idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, her boyfriend, Logan Marshall Green, the scientist with the plan, is the biggest prick, and you can't wait to see him die. Anyway, that's Prometheus. We're not here to talk about Prometheus. We probably will end up talking about it more, but we're actually here to talk about Alien Romulus, the new one from this week that just came out, directed by Fede Alvarez, starring, help me out here, Kaylee Spaney,
and David Johnson.
The ghost of Ian Holm, of course, and yes, David Johnson. I spoiled that right away, huh? You should have seen Alien Romulus before you listen to this.
Yeah,
because we'll talk about all of it. Spoilers, obviously.
Why don't we start with where it fits into the blue collar divide there? Then,
mm-hmm.
What we get here is the youngest cast of characters in the franchise history, right?
Yeah, they're in their mid to early 20s, I'd say.
Yeah, probably. Coded as younger, even. I mean,
yeah,
you could buy them being 17 or 18 and this movie playing out basically the same way.
If we're not counting AVPR, then yes, they are the youngest. And they definitely have the blue collar working class thing.
I mean, these actors are in their 20s, but that is Hollywood for late teens. I suppose. I don't know. I don't think it's ever nailed down the age of these characters, but they are written as late teens for sure.
Yeah.
And
but let's say they're 22, 24. Did it bother you that they were not middle-aged truckers or Marines? That is part of the vibe of the series up to this point.
I thought it was a breath of fresh air. It's maybe the only real innovation of this movie. That's not true. That's unfair. But it is a nice change up. And, speaking for what is, I mean, it's a horror franchise, like straight up. It's about time we had a bunch of dead teenagers in one of these, probably.
Yeah, I guess that was a thing that was always part of what set the Alien franchise apart from other horror franchises, if you consider Alien horror, which I do. I mean, just because I started watching them when I was a kid and they weren't really scary. But yeah, that it always skewed older. So I could see some like real purists being like, "This is they're trying to make it into a I Know What You Did Last Summer vibes or whatever." Did not bother me at all. I actually thought at this point, 7 movies in, anything to give this entry its own identity relative to the rest of the series is probably to the better.
Very much so. Yeah. I think it's a good cast too. I mean, I think there's obvious standouts. I don't know. They're all incredible, but like David Johnson, is that the guy's name correctly?
I think so.
The guy playing the synthetic is, exceptional, and the MVP of the film.
Oh, hands down, absolutely.
Whenever anyone's sharing a scene with him, he kind of high tide raises all boats kind of performance, I would say.
Is it just a given that the android part in an Alien movie is always going to be the best part?
I was wondering that. That certainly seems to be the case all the time. I can't think of one that...
Once Ripley's out of the picture, then it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Bishop is not the best part about Aliens. He's a great part about it.
Yeah, he's a great, memorable android.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lately, Fassbender in the last 2 Ridley Scott films and Andy in this are the clear standouts. Like there's no question really. So it's definitely a thing, and they've never had a bad android either.
Yeah, I think.
Well, Annalee Call, maybe, I don't know.
Was that Winona Ryder's name in Resurrection?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
right.
I don't remember that one well enough to say for sure whether she was one of the best or not.
But she's not written as an android, is the problem. There's nothing that makes her an android other than milk blood.
Right. Well, with the Prometheus and Covenant, it wasn't clear initially, I think, whether that was just because Fassbender was on this incredible tear where he was always head and shoulders above every other performer in the movie and everything he was in, it seemed like, or whether it's part of the franchise now that just the synthetic is the most interesting thing on screen.
I mean, it is, though, at this point. Like, no denying it. Like, Andy might be the final nail in the coffin on that one. He's wonderful. The obvious standout of the film, and kind of where all the dramatic tension lies is how his story is going to resolve, and what side of this he's going to end up on, and and what the movie thinks about him as well. Like, it's all kind of curious and up in the air, and it's a really strong, really interesting performance that never loses sight of the fact that he is a synthetic person. That's where all the most exciting stuff of this film lives, is in him, I think. Certainly narratively. I think this is a really well-made film too, is the thing.
Oh yeah.
Like just the way it's shot, the way it's cut together, the look of it, the lighting, the structure of it, just the way it's put together is quite good. Fede Alvarez is great at that, as a rule.
He's clearly a big dumb dork fan of the franchise. I mean, I lost count of all the Alien Isolation things that I was noticing. I was just playing that game last night to remind myself, and there's the save stations, and to open a door, you've got to pump the thing twice and then prime the button. It's all over the place, which I appreciated. Yeah. I thought that was great.
Oh yeah, not having played that game, his evident dorkery for the franchise was all over the place. And not always to the better. I just about rolled my head off my shoulders at the "get away from her." So
we should should focus on this and spend some time on this. First, walking out of the theater, my hackles are very sensitive to Easter eggs, like direct quotes from other movies, where it almost seems like it's purposely designed so that it could only take you out of the story. I hate that. I wish people wouldn't do that.
Yeah, well.
That's what the "get away from her bitch" line did.
I was looking up So I was looking this up after the fact. How many lines do you guys think from your memory? I'm assuming you both saw it one time.
Yeah.
How many lines from your memory of dialogue do you think are direct references to other Alien films? How many do you think there is?
I imagine more than I can count. There's two that really.
That's what I was going to say. There was two that stopped me cold.
That's what I was going to say. Is I'm assuming we're talking about Rook and Andy, but
yes,
I actually went through and I counted with the help of other Redditors. There's almost 20 that are directly from other movies.
That I believe, but there's some stuff that's generic enough. In Star Wars, they can always say like, "I've got a bad feeling about this."
Right, and when Andy sees the hive and he says "busy little creatures," it's not like a big on the nose moment. I bet a lot of people wouldn't even remember that, but
yeah, well, because it makes sense in context. If you've never seen another Alien movie, you don't stop and wonder what's that line about. But the "get away from here, you bitch" line is weird. It's out of character.
It should have been a dad joke, obviously, right?
Yeah,
it should have been like, when you're in an elevator, you get the shaft or something like that, something silly. But it would have fit Andy's character perfectly, and it would have been a fun little thing. But
it would have been the that's actually good because that would have been the moment when you realize, okay, our Andy is back for sure.
Yeah,
and that's kind of a question at that moment, so that's good. I would have liked that, actually. A great idea, and pay something off narratively instead of remember aliens. As this is the problem I have with this film.
I do want to be clear. I really like this film. I'm so happy that I finally feel like there's another film I can put with the first two. It's not. It's got problems.
See, that's like
hold on.
Okay.
It's got problems. It's got big problems. We're going to talk about them. But for me personally, for what I wanted out of an Alien movie in this moment, I can finally say, okay, the first two are genuinely great. I finally have another one that I can call good, and I don't have to feel bad about it. Like I have to, all the other ones, it's like there's good elements, but I wouldn't call them good movies necessarily.
But the first two don't have problems, and that's why you can't put this with them.
Right.
You can't put much of anything with them. They are on a rarefied tier. So this to me is much more on the tier of Alien Covenant I like both those better than Alien 3, I think, having just watched them yesterday. But
well, Alien 3 is a nihilistic punch in the face of a movie. So
that one's lower on the tier list for me. It took me a while to kind of turn on it. I've seen it, half a dozen times or more. That's unusual for a movie that I kind of have ultimately decided I don't like that much. But I did watch it 6 times to get there. It's an interesting movie. Every Alien movie is interesting, at least.
Yeah,
I think they're all kind of good. But there's definitely the lowest shelf is where you put Alien 3 and Resurrection, I suppose.
Right.
I always want to put Alien 3 a little higher because I do like the nihilistic, just ice pick to your eye that movie is something I respect more from a distance than when I try to actually watch it and realize, oh, this is the other part of it being a Fincher movie. My head automatically tries to fill in that, well, his movies are interesting and entertaining to watch on a scene-to-scene basis. Not so that one. It is a drag to actually watch, unfortunately, even as the things that it mostly gets slagged off for are things I have a little bit more respect for.
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head the memorable characters from that movie. All I can think of is Charles Dance, but largely because he's Charles Dance and he's just so charismatic. But he's gone early. Spoilers for Alien 3. And then Charles Dutton, is that his name?
Yeah, but Charles Dutton, I just remember his death scene. That's the only thing I remember.
Yeah,
about that.
And
character.
Then other than that, all the other prisoners. I know there is other prisoner characters, but those are the only two that I really give any shits about.
There's a Postlethwaite in there.
What did we call him in the episode we did? Is like a big assortment of wet bald men running around, something like that. It's very hard to pin those guys down at all.
90% of them are white, and they're all the same weight and general build. So
yes,
and then Ridley Scott was like, "You called that pale bald white men? I'll show you what modern technology can do to pale albinos."
Yeah. Oh, see those movies. those, I mean, we're trying to overview the whole series now, as we often, it's a fun one to talk about. The Prometheus Covenant films have such ambition. I mean, we talked about a little the pretension of it, as sure, and they're dumb as fuck in some ways, yes, but they are shooting for something. They are really trying to be something. They're going for an idea. It's
to the extent that they resent being Alien movies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Very much so. They're angry to include the xenomorph.
And Alien Romulus, totally opposite. So enthusiastic to include the xenomorphs.
Yeah.
And to not, I mean, it does include the Prometheus goo, which...
It includes stuff from every other Alien film.
Yes.
It includes the goo. I mean, I'm sure, John, you're the big fan. You noticed during Rook's, and we'll talk about Rook, but during Rook's little expository scene in the lab, they played the Prometheus theme.
The music cue?
Yeah, they played the cue for a moment.
Oh, yeah. I love it. Yeah, I love that. Love that theme. I was like, "Whoa, it's the Prometheus theme!" Yeah, I was very excited. I remember Prometheus. So that is ultimately my thing, though, is that this is a collection, a greatest hits collection, is how I was phrasing it, as a film. It is kind of a very good example of that. It's an entertaining movie, but it really struggles to have its own identity. I think.
Well, is it struggling to do that? Because is it even trying to? Is it?
Well,
that's not a fight the movie's interested in having.
That's true. And it succeeds about as much as you can if you're alighting that. And because these movies have all kind of had their own identity. It's a franchise kind of typified by, having a distinct voice and idea. They made a whole point of having specific auteurs come in and direct individual entries for the first four, and then Ridley Scott comes back, but you couldn't accuse that of being anything regular when he does, so well, it's always kind of, that's been built into it in a fun way, Okay. It was like the way they used to do Mission Impossible movies. And now, this one more feels like, well, y'all like Alien movies, right? Why don't we just do an Alien movie, a regular Alien movie, and do a good job of it? And they succeed.
That is why I'm completely fine with this movie's. And I kind of disagree with you about the ambition. I think it's a little more ambitious in trying to do some interesting new things. But I'm fine with it just being a good Alien movie. I don't need it to change the world, because we've had two chances at that. We've had all these Alien movies that have been a mixed bag, to say the least. Being a good Alien movie, it's enough. I'm happy. I mean, we have Prey as well over in the Predator-verse, making the Predator movies good again. It's a good time to be a fan of this franchise, and I'm satisfied with that.
Well, but I don't know, because Predator had several bad Predator movies that were trying to do a Predator movie, and I think as John was describing it made me realizing maybe something that I did walk out of this movie thinking that was a pretty good movie, but it does represent the end of something that made the Alien franchise unique, which was that it was a big budget franchise that let auteurs take weird swings. And now it's sort of like, you're right, this is just a good Alien movie. And it's weird that it's so obvious that that's what it is when we just haven't had one of those. Just good. We had a all-time classic original and an all-time classic follow-up sequel. And then everything else was a weird misfire, basically, until now we just get one over the plate. That's a solid, single, maybe a double even. But does the Alien franchise settling into a place of baseline competency, is that something to be happy about? Like, even as this does definitely go, like, it is above the median Alien movie, like, without question.
If this was directly after Aliens, no, because that's a step down. But we've had so much since then that I think the answer inevitably has to be yes.
I think there's a certain type of movie geek anyway that is happier to continually have weird alien misfires than
maybe me. Yeah.
MCU level, assembly line competence.
Right.
Become the norm.
I mean, that sounds like a pejorative when you say it that way.
It is when most people say it. It's not so much when I say it.
I don't think this film is that artless, though. You guys are kind of low key implying that it is. I think it's beautifully shot, and
the craft is exceptional. Like the technical acumen brought to bear on this is very high.
I would argue the key central relationship of Andy and Rain is the most effective one since the second movie. I mean, I can't think of anything in Prometheus that maybe between David and his victims, I suppose you could argue that, but
I think it pulls its punch a little.
Yeah, I'll argue.
Whoa! Hold on.
Yeah.
This movie pulls its punch. What do you mean?
Oh yeah,
with Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, with Andy. Okay, I thought you were talking in general, and I was.
No, it's a mean film. I think it does.
It's
pull
so
punches,
mean to this one character, but we'll get into that, I guess.
She got off better than I thought she was going to. Let me put it that way.
There's a couple bad ones. Even the most unlikable character, his death is memorably awful.
I've been waiting so long for somebody to die that way, and because people are getting splashed left and right like it's water that burns you a little bit, and to finally see the actual results of flesh, meaning xenomorph blood.
The acid was a much bigger factor in this than it usually is, and I really did appreciate that. I mean, it knows what it's doing so well. It knows these movies and the tropes of an alien film and the things that you can do with them. And all their heads look like sex organs. All that stuff is here, and so there's a little bit of like, this stuff is established. Let's play around with it, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that it's all those scenes. The best scene in the movie, maybe the slow motion 0G acid tornado.
Oh, it's so cool.
That's a great idea. Yeah. That's really cool. That's them kind of just like taking the stuff and doing something new with it in a cool way, and I really appreciated that.
That's the type of inventiveness that you have to deal in when you're making 6th and 7th and 9th entries in a franchise, though. And that is okay. Here's something using the established components that we're familiar with that we have not seen yet.
Yes,
I found myself sort of like grinning at that scene conceptually and then visually not really being able to tell what was going on. Like, I know in an abstract fashion what they're trying to do, but I can't actually tell how close anybody's getting to anything or how fast they're going in relation to each other. To I don't know. It's not quite Tom Cruise hanging his nose an inch above the ground in Mission Impossible in terms of like being able to see the geography of the suspense sequence. But you know what? They're trying something new. And again, that's something we have to celebrate this deep into a franchise, showing us a little something new there.
Especially when they are quite content to do a lot of the same stuff in many other ways.
Yeah. I have two main gripes with this movie, and I don't think either of them are about doing the same. Really, they're not about doing the same stuff.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You guys want to talk about Andy or aliens first, I guess?
Well, we've kind of been talking synthetics. Let's keep synthetics rolling.
Okay. Talking about pulling the punch with Andy. And John, when you were asking me if I had seen this movie and if we want to do an episode on it, and you kind of no-sold me on it and said like, well, it's going to raise your legacy sequel hackles. So I went into it expecting that. It did not really, because it raises some prequel hackles, which are related but separate lanes of hackle. And but the ones that the bugbear of mine that it did activate, which you've heard me go on about before, is it's nice guy robots. And a lot of the theme of this movie is about how we need to treat robots like people. And no, absolutely not. Fuck that.
Oh my God.
Fuck Andy. This is the big emotional crux of Rain's character arc, and when she imitates Ripley going back for Newt, is when she refuses to leave Andy behind because it's such a mean thing to do to leave this in her back. So no, we already demonstrated that his virtues are artificial, and with the flip of a switch and a disc, he becomes evil. Like that's there's nothing there to save. Fuck him. Leave him.
Well, you could say that of humans. It doesn't take one bad day and all that.
Yeah, you could, but it's not with a one bad CD mini disc.
It depends what's on the disc.
It's just a terrible YouTube algorithm got loaded into his skull port.
That'll happen. This is thing. I liked where they were going. Like, I thought the setup with him was really cool and really creepy.
It was,
and the fact that she had kind of like planning to leave him eventually, but hadn't really worked up the courage to tell him yet. That's like, I thought that was excellent. Like sort of character building in a sort of understandable, but yet still it's a betrayal, and it's understandable because he's a synthetic, but at the same time, if you actually respect him as a person, isn't that bullshit? Like all that was like, yeah, this is good. This is good. It felt like as mean as this film was, the way to pay that off would be for him to as his own person, reject her. To decide, like, kind of get won over by Rook a little bit. That's where I thought this was going. But no, he is completely based on programming.
But
throughout.
Is that too much of a retread of like David stuff from the other more recent movies?
I mean, it's consistent with the way synthetics work in this universe, I would say.
That is a much more positive spin on retread.
But you can't trust them. You can never trust the synthetics in this, except Bishop, of course, the most trustworthy of all robots.
The point of the second movie's android is that you can.
Mm-hmm. But tracking that over the course of these films is kind of one of the most fascinating things. Mm-hmm. And again, Andy is the highlight of this, and everything that happens with him works. But yeah, I mean, I guess I just wanted the darkest possible film.
I gotta say, I'm sitting here as you guys are talking. I'm thinking of that classic Star Trek episode, Measure of a Man, where Data he has to prove if he's an item or a person, and I'm just picturing you two. Kill him! Send him to the slave pens immediately. Yeah.
I mean, Data is altogether more of a general artificial intelligence. This movie makes clear that these are easily reprogrammable. The only reason why he was acting nice at all is because he is given one directive to serve Rada's interest, but that is also at the press of a button can be flipped over to the exact opposite. And he feels no more deeply about one than the other. And it's machinery. And God damn it, at this point in 2024, we do not need people to be more sympathetic to fucking bots and algorithms and things that pretend to that imitate human speech patterns and feeling with none of the actual, like, I don't know. I guess the reason AI stuff is maybe start to believe in a soul.
This is the most old men yell at clouds argument I've heard about this movie yet. But
no, this is great. These are the questions you're supposed to be asking after an alien movie, for sure. Like all of them, really. Even good old Bishop, he ends maybe the second Bishop we see. He's not a real person, right? Have we figured that out? We don't know for sure.
I think
the guy at the end
when he gets whacked by the wrench, he has blood.
Yeah, he has red blood. So yeah, he's a man.
But Alien vs. Predator would retcon that. So that's one of the reasons why we have to jettison it from continuity.
God damn. Okay. What about Rook though? What do we think of Rook?
Okay, we have to. So digital necromancy. Mm-hmm. It turns out doesn't bother me that much. I was kind of okay with it.
I'm kind of amazed to hear you say this because I thought this was going to be my hot take, which is that, like, you know what? I think I'm in favor of this now.
Like his family signed off on it.
Yeah.
So.
I got some money. I think he'd get a kick out of it. Ian Holm, sure, why not?
Yeah,
one more from Beyond the Grave. How about many more? We'll see. Maybe he can be in a Pepsi commercial. I don't care.
I've seen many people suggest, why not put David in that situation, which would be, to me, that'd be quite contrived, or why not put a working Joe, a Seegson robot from Alien Isolation? What? Basically, the arguments are why not use another android? And I'm glad it wasn't. I'm glad it's Ash, just because if it had been David or something like that, so much of my feelings about the movie would be more tied with Prometheus. I like that it's tied to Alien 1. I just like that. And to me, it makes logical sense that a a Black Ops facility science officer android during this time period, which I think is 20 years after Alien 1, it makes sense that they'd still be using this model. It's just, to me, it's logical. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I don't love digital necromancy as a concept. I'd say it makes the most sense in this. This is the context where it makes the most sense, where it's a prequel thing that's set in a time frame where that model would still be around. It's a synthetic model that there are many copies of anyway, and it's also torn up and doesn't have to look its best because it's ravaged to begin with.
Right.
I don't know. I don't want this to be as much of a thing as it is, and yet in this context, I thought it works in this movie just fine.
Yeah, I think it's a good performance. I think it's one of the better performances in the film. I'm kind of curious how they got it.
But,
I mean, I assume they had an actor on set doing it.
If they just could have got somebody that looked like Ian Holm and could like do a passable imitation, like that would have been fine too, because half their face could be obscured with milk, like dried milk blood and spatter and stuff.
Get Martin Freeman.
I mean,
that
would have been fun.
But leave him in his Bilbo wig just to confuse people.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's definitely like it. I think it's necessary that it is Ian Holm if they want you to make that connection, because it is a different character from Ash, technically, you know. So it actually has to look exactly like him to work in the way it is intended to work, I think.
Oh, I don't know. I think he's wearing the same costume. If you give him the same haircut and he's generally the same face, like okay, well it's difference between an iPhone 10 and an iPhone 11. It's
right, but it could literally be any actor, and we'd still be like, well, it's a synthetic in an alien movie. This movie's clearly banking on us having experience in relationships with alien movies, so I think we'd get it if it was just some random British character act, like it could be like anybody, and we'd be like, oh yeah, it's one of the Weyland-Yutani. Okay, yeah, gotcha. It's the bad one, that's going to be a negative influence on Andy. Okay, gotcha. It's all there. The juice of it comes from it being Ian Holm, although I guess it could be Bishop or David, and that would be work as well. If it was Winona Ryder, that'd be wild.
I think she'd be up for it though.
I do have to say one of my favorite things about the movie is, and I've mentioned this a few times, I really like that they changed Weyland-Yutani's interest in the xenomorph a bit.
Mm-hmm. This is the best part of the movie, I think. Yeah.
In Aliens, I'm sure it's mentioned in Alien 3. It's a focal point of Alien Resurrection. The implication is that Weyland-Yutani wants the animal as like a weapon, like a biological weapon they could control and, I don't know, teach it like a dog to attack people or something. To me, that has always been completely ridiculous and silly, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. But when you reframe their interest as being in this sort of proto-molecule pathogen thing that from Prometheus, the black goo, I guess we call it, all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense to me, because the movie, the whole first act on that horrible mining planet, it's really good about showing us in the text how fragile we are and how frail we are and how not designed for space travel and colonization we are. So the idea that, you could use this rapid evolution goo to help us adapt so that we can live in wide ranges of temperature. Like the plan actually, to me at least, makes a lot more sense. And I really appreciated that. Al, it sounds like you're the same way.
Absolutely. I love that. I mean, sure, this would have, I suppose, military applications too, if you're
right.
trying to breed shock troopers that can fight in different environments. Why you need to, though, if we can't survive, if humans can't ever survive there, is another question. And it is a more interesting sci-fi idea than attack dogs,
right?
And it reframes the villainy of Weyland-Yutani in an interesting way. I think that is a thing that 7 movies in, like, there's not a lot of big changes we can make to this universe, but that's an interesting one. I don't know if I'm simultaneously here saying that I hate that the movie made the robot too human, but I love that they made the corporation more human. But
he could still be evil and be human. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've just been so one-dimensional so far, and it doesn't change anything they're going to do.
Yeah,
like,
there's a shadowy conglomerate, and yeah.
Yeah. But framing the idea
kinda,
that our colonies are failing, that is something that's never been articulated in the prior Alien movies, but it's easy to read into them. That like, yeah, it doesn't look like anybody's thriving out here.
Yeah, LV-421 is not an aberration exactly. You know, like this is kind of what it would be like trying to colonize outer space. I do think this is a great idea. I think it's always kind of been implicit in the franchise that that this is the idea of I mean, yes, weapons division, I guess, always gets the headline, but it's sort of just how science works, right? I mean, this is the way they it's sort of the serpent and the rainbow thing. Like they were, they had scientists go down to Haiti to investigate voodoo practices because there was there was value in anesthetic medicine to be found there. That's there. There's so much stuff that can be mined from discovery. Or in the rainforest. It's that sort of thing, and I don't know. I think that's always kind of been the general idea, right? With Weyland-Yutani or anyone trying to get. I like you said, I guess it is weapons explicitly in Resurrection.
Yeah, I mean, we're introduced to them in the very first movie as a mining concern, I suppose. And
right. Mm-hmm.
So they've got their fingers in more than one pie, and they'll seek profit for wherever they can find it. It makes sense when you think about it a little more that, well, yeah, there's probably more profit in space mining than space warfare. Because space is so empty in this universe that there's not that many other people to fight, one would think.
Yeah.
And the bigger problem is how do you keep people alive in these incredibly hostile environments? And that's, again, more interesting sci-fi ground that the series has not broken yet, and also reframes the relationship to the company in a way that doesn't make them the good guys, but makes
more sense.
Makes their motivations a lot more plausible.
As opposed to, we are the evil company.
And
we're here for evil. That's our profit margin is evil.
Yes. Yeah. Therefore, we must seek out the most evil things in the universe and bring them to us.
Mm-hmm. Let me stop you. What if we weaponize that? Yeah. When this happened, when the Deathless Serum was introduced into the film, I was just like, oh shit, what are they going to do with this? This is really scary potential here. This is going to be some of the worst shit that ever happened to any characters in Alien films, because the promise of that to me is like, what if the body is living through stuff that it should not live through?
Yeah, you see the mouse like corpse reconstruct itself, obviously like snapping bones around and in strange directions. You think that the pregnant lady is going to be doing that at the end, and she doesn't really.
Yeah, it just becomes a redo of Resurrection, unfortunately, with more CGI instead of a physical creature, and that is the bummer of this for me, is that this is such a potent idea and such a terrifying idea potentially. The deathlessness as a Lovecraftian horror idea is just that's something that very much is not meant for humans. That seems like the it's kind of in a foot in Prometheus as well, is that sort of forbidden knowledge. It's too much cosmic horror. That I think I was very excited about, and I was like, where are they going to go with this? And it's kind of like, places they've already been,
which is that's a cul-de-sac you're going to find 7 movies into a series quite often.
Yeah. So I've gone back and forth on the section that I affectionately referred to as the afterbirth that every Alien movie has had, the little tag after the actual climax where crazy stuff happens. This one, I was going back and forth on. Obviously, it makes you think of Resurrection, but I ultimately decided that I do like it, and I think you have to have it because, like we said, a big theme of the movie is Weyland-Yutani wants to do this with the pathogen. You have to see in the most Lovecraftian, horrific terms possible at the end of the day why that's not a good idea and why it's not going to work. I think you have to have that tag because I agree. You have to refute that idea, right, in some way. And how do you do it without the hybrid creature?
Yeah, the dinosaur theme park should not be allowed to exist.
Right,
has to be the point.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's a transgression. It's science going too far, and that's the whole thing with with a lot of sci-fi horror. Seems to be like where it lands, and certainly this franchise. You know, it's not going to be like, hey, the deathless serum really worked out for everyone.
Everyone's good now.
I agree with you guys structurally, like narrative terms. In real world terms, I am totally pro dinosaur theme park. One of the things I love about Jurassic Park is that its big, like, heady thesis is that we cannot have zoos or they will destroy humanity. I don't think holds up in real world terms.
It's more philosophical than that.
I realize in this moment I am totally pro dinosaur, but I'd go with you. That'd be awesome. But
pro Dinosaur Park is the Jurassic World franchise.
Are you by extension saying that you're pro lactating like black goo?
I am pro continuing to study the black goo and eventually finding a use for it that is not so Lovecraftian and monstrous.
Right.
But I think it warrants further study. Absolutely.
Yeah, that prototype's not quite ready.
Yeah.
I mean, the implication is from this movie is that Earth is pretty from the Prometheus and Covenant, perhaps, that the Earth is getting to be pretty depleted and destroyed, and also our colonies are failing. So, yeah, we might have to take some leaps to try and extend humanity's lifespan out into the galaxy. And
Elon Musk could be pro goo for sure.
Oh, absolutely he would. But I don't know that, like, that mouse that gets put back together, I don't think that's still a mouse in any meaningful sense.
No.
So I don't think it's quite ready for market. But I think Rook is kind of on the right track of, we should probably do what we have to do to preserve these specimens and study them.
There's a logic to the cold equations of Rook for sure. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's a good thing. That makes him more interesting for sure. This is not just a cameo like, hey, Ian Holmes' ghost. This is, it's a real character in the film.
Yeah. With
a perspective that and a significant role. I think he's great. Actually, again, I love that. I love that they brought his ghost back from the dead. It's awesome.
Okay. So
is that not an odd metaphor to have in this film as well, too? Just like,
yeah, I'm just trying to make a tally here. So far in this episode, I've come out as pro corporate personhood. John is pro necromancy.
Yes.
And David is, I guess, just pro dinosaur theme park, but that's everybody. He's pro Prometheus. That's
nobody's really pro Prometheus.
I'm pro Prometheus. I like that one. It's a toss up for what gets the middle spot in the franchise for me. Is it Romulus or Prometheus? I don't know. I haven't decided.
Oh, I think it's definitely Romulus.
It's easily Romulus. Come on.
I don't know.
This has better context for its character. Just like Prometheus, to me, is the ultimate sort of smart people as written by a dumb guy movie, which is a particular thing that bothers me. And it also, I think, is so antithetical to what makes the charm of the first two movies work. But regardless, get back to Romulus, and that, especially that. Well, it is a little unfortunate that the afterbirth sequence that David refers to. I think that
what a name.
The more traditional, the classier and more traditional version is that these have to have a false dawn and then like a fourth act
right
sequence. But it is a little unfortunate how that has become codified, and now it's like
there's no surprise.
The dawn doesn't fool me for a second. I don't exhale even in the slightest. And we have to do the sequence after you think you've escaped, where it's on the thing. That's in every single one of them. The last time it did anything differently at all with it, I think, was Alien 3, where after the alien is killed, then the company shows up and they're the threat for the fourth act little showdown.
Right. There is a little, I mean, there's like fake outs in Alien 3. I really, in Romulus, my favorite stretch of the movie has got to be the traditional climax of the acid tunnel going into the elevator. I was thrilled by that. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, it's good.
Thematic concerns aside, we've already established that we think the afterbirth had to be there for story reasons. Would you have preferred if it had just broken a tradition and ended traditionally, just with them getting off the ship? Is that enough?
No.
Do you need that thing?
I want it to go crazy. I want, I'm my disappointment is not that it's there. It's that it's another Alien human hybrid. Yeah. Wandering around, acting very much like an alien, just with a slightly different design.
It's pretty crazy. I mean,
that is what I meant. No, but this is what I was. This is one of my beefs too. Is why do people making alien movies after a certain point think that we need an alien human hybrid? Like the original Xenomorph is that already.
Right.
Yep.
So
well, this is why this is not a great. It's. I don't know what it does. It kind of undercuts the very exciting horror concept of the Deathless Serum for me. And it's also just sort of not great on its own. It's one of the lesser creature sequences in this film, which has some good ones. And so this one, it comes at the end. It's sort of like, oh, okay, I'm going to wait through this. Covenant has the same problem, I think. It's one of the least effective parts of the film is the last big alien fight, because it's just like, okay, wrap it up.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. And Covenant, and my favorite part of the Romulus, I think, is sort of everything with the initial encounter with where the facehuggers thaw and attack up through like Andy getting switched over and sort of establishing, okay, now we have to go to the other side. That whole stretch, I think, is the most effective sequence for me. It's a lot more pronounced in Covenant, that the initial alien encounter there that leads to like the lander getting destroyed and several of the characters dying is like
great, yeah,
head and shoulders above the rest of the movie in terms of suspense and everything, and that's way early on. But I haven't seen Resurrection in so long. But as I recall, the finale there, the alien human hybrid there, is a lot like this one, where okay, that looks slightly different. It presents no novel threat that a regular xenomorph would not.
Not really, no.
It just looks a little less more human, a little less alien, even, which undercuts the scary aspect of the xenomorph and the genius of the xenomorph.
It's gross and goopy and creepy. It's that movie's not as bad as I think its reputation. But it's kind of it is a novel idea in Alien Resurrection, because it is also sort of Ripley's child in a way. You got Brad Dourif kind of doing the exposition heavy lifting there. That works a little better, I think. It's got a really gross kill. The way the thing dies is nasty. So that all helps. And I think that, so this is another issue with Romulus, is it does that seem a little less good than Resurrection does. So
we've seen so many versions of that scene.
Yeah.
Where you have to, okay, now it's on our escape ship, and now we have to figure out a way to throw it out the airlock.
I do personally, I think the creature in this movie looks a lot, this is just personal opinion, but I think it looks a lot scarier and better than the Resurrection hybrid, which is just kind of a gross like booger monster. This thing looks like pathetic. This thing looks like something out of Bloodborne. It looks like the Orphan of Kos or something.
It does. It looks exactly like the Orphan of Kos.
Yeah,
Bloodborne. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is one where I'm out of step with most people, because one, I think I was
haven't beat Bloodborne, eh, Al?
No, I have not.
Okay. What a noob.
I haven't started any of the Souls stuff, because I know that once I do, there's like 500 hours of my life gone down the drain.
It's no joke, man. That is exactly what. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think just because I was waiting so much for this final sequence to kick in, and now I'm saying, okay, like you got to get onto the ship so we can do the final like battle or whatever, and then it comes down, I'm like, okay, another human alien, blah blah blah. It didn't work on me, but it worked on my audience. Like there were audible gasps when that thing came out.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's something I wanted to mention. Is I heard some what the Fs from the audience that seemed to be completely genuine. That as much as I do like this movie, I mean, you got to admit 80% of the movie is facehuggers and drones, which we are very familiar with. I think all three of us, know exactly what they look like. So
it's the most play for facehuggers have gotten, I feel like, in any of them.
Yeah, they're great in this movie. They're so scary. They're amazing.
This is the main thing that I think is really awesome about Alien Romulus, I must say, is that I think as an introduction to a new audience and a way of extending the life of this franchise, I think it's exceptional.
Yeah.
I think this actually will, kind of get a new generation invested in these movies. And this as a movie monster, I think has like a bright future ahead of it now, because this will scare the fuck out of young people. I think this is going to be a big one. I think this is going to introduce them to all these films, but will on its own kind of just be a big hit and ensure that we're just going to keep seeing these. And that's good.
It's doing well at the box office.
Mm-hmm.
I, by the way, had a short window in which I could get out to see this, and I didn't have a choice into what screening I went to, so I had to go to a 4DX one, which my parents are...
Here we go again.
Oh yeah, you did Avatar with us, right? After I did that was my introduction to 4DX. Again, a format that just fundamentally does not work. And when they're doing all of the
so much
stuff in space,
did they spray you with acid at any point?
There was less spray. There was less water spray than in Avatar.
I guess that makes sense.
And for the space docking sequences, it should moving the chairs back and forth like a ride should be more effective, but it's never not just pulls it straight out of the movie. However, the point of this is the one effective use of 4DX that I've ever experienced came in this, which is during the face hugger attack sequences where they're skittering around on the ground, they would blast the back of my ankles with air. And was really effective.
You raise your feet in the air.
That's nice.
Yeah, makes you feel like something's slithering on you. That's the only time that the 4DX has ever added something to the experience for me.
It's funny that scene specifically in the facehugger lab, the red light scene.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, mentally, I assumed once 10 facehuggers are out and awake and crawling through the water, I'm like, well, both these men are dead. There's zero chance they're getting out of this room, just because. I've seen an alien movie before, and they jump at you and they get you, and you're done.
But they both get out. That's a good subversion.
The fact that they both get out weirdly made me more tense, because I'm like, oh, this is not. They can survive if they make good choices. They might, and it's so strange that made me more tense than if they had both died on the spot.
I got to say, I wouldn't have minded a slightly bigger cast just to up our body count.
More bodies, yeah.
A little. Wouldn't have minded. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. A lot of horrible death in this film. But another couple wouldn't
It's
hurt.
more akin to Alien in that regard than it is to Aliens or Covenant. I agree with you, David, what you're saying about there's something to me when I was a kid and first started getting into horror movies, the hard part for me, this applied to because the Alien and Aliens are some of the first horror movies I ever watched as a kid. But the most difficult part for me of a horror movie was the first act, was sitting through the setup, knowing that I had rented or bought a ticket for a horror movie and trying resisting starting to empathize with any of the people, because I know that this movie cannot go on without everything going to hell. And so for me, there's actually, I think I still carry some of this around with me, a little bit of an exhale once that first facehugger happens. But until it does, I'm like, well, it's got to get one of them. They can't just this.
I mean, it does get one of them.
Oh no, yeah, it does.
Those guys.
I'm saying, but that sort of meta knowledge, I guess, even as a kid, I remember having, and there is almost a relief when it's okay, that's the one it got. So now now I know who I can
write off.
Yes, who I can invest in somewhat because they still have a chance.
That brings me to one of my genuine, sincere gripes with the movie is the life cycle stuff is just out of control.
Yes, this was my other big.
I know you're going to say whatever. Let me say my piece. Damn it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm saying this is my other big one. I totally agree with what you're going to say.
The accelerated growth in Alien 1, it's completely insane. I mean, this thing latches on to Kane. It takes a few hours maybe to ingest him, and then it breaks out of his chest, and it grows to full growth within, it's got to be a day, right? Or maybe 2 days at most, something like that. So this,
it's not entirely clear. They have some room to fudge it.
They have some room to fudge it. And this little tiny chest burster grows to a 8-foot tall monster, which is already, that's asking a lot. But then in this movie, Navarro, or is that her name? Nakamura?
Yes.
Who was the lady? Navarro?
I'm pretty sure they were calling her Navarro, even though she appeared to be Asian. But
yeah, anyway.
She had a Spanish name. I mean, whatever. That's not the most confusing thing in the world.
Yeah.
But
she gets face-hugged and she gets impregnated within seconds. and then the chestburster gestates and breaks out of her chest, all in one 10-minute sequence that is certainly implied to be more or less real time. That's way too like law of conservation of mass. I mean, what is this thing eating that it grows in?
Well,
how is it packing on this mass?
Exactly, it's just like basic science. The problem for me is that you could have. There's a moment where Navarro crashes the ship into the thing and it throws it up. You could have easily just written a beat where everyone's like knocked out for a couple hours or something, and helped to justify how it grows so quickly.
I think knocking people out for hours at a time, especially an entire group, is not that much. I
know. It's not ideal, but I should mention really quickly. I noticed the second time through there is a line that they say during the rat thing that justifies it. It's something about like they intentionally accelerated the Xeno regen process. So they do touch on it. They explain it.
That's it.
But it's so much easier
to
fix it.
Though. It's too fast.
It's so much easier to just fix it by adjusting the timelines of the script that you have complete control over. The countdown, add 12 hours to the countdown, have them, after the crash, they're separated for a longer time as they're trying to get through. I mean,
it's a big station.
Stuff about the frame. Yeah, and navigating the environment and the hostility of the space environment, that's part of the Alien franchise too, the way that that plays into things.
Yeah.
And
they want a xenomorph running around earlier rather than later.
Yeah.
This didn't bug me because I was just like, well, whatever. Get to the thing. They could adjust it, but I think the alien needs to show up roughly the same place in the script, page count wise.
Mm-hmm. Sure, but they can be separated for 12 hours.
Their answer was simply the Weyland-Yutani guys on this ship were farther along, and they are. They've made a deathless serum, so they've been making progress. These things were freeze dried in advance to, presumably do what they end up doing. So there's corporate skullduggery at hand to explain it, and that's enough for me. If it gets us to the point where we're moving on with the thing.
Yeah.
We're getting past that first act. You see, where so you can stop empathizing with the characters all the sooner.
I know, but once the facehugger attaches, that's when I know. Okay, that's when that exhale comes. But I was trying to figure out for the rest of the movie because this was bugging me. And I'm like, why are you getting hung up on this? Like, because I agree with. In theory, with everything you said, John, like, yeah. Let's just get to the point. We don't need to pretend anything, but fucking with the alien life cycle does bother me, and I think it's in large part because the alien life cycle is the genius innovation of this franchise. It is the thing that makes Alien and the Xenomorph so great. Is how it's
seventh movie, man.
I know,
seventh film.
That doesn't mean you treat it like an arbitrary burden that you have to get past to get to the drone, The life cycle is so much of the horror.
You can also...
What's lost other than some hours?
There are drones already on this station when they arrive.
Yeah, that is a...
Like that, yeah. You don't need...
That's true, there's a lot of them.
We don't need to create one from one of them, except for that's how the beats of the franchise dictate that it's somebody we know that gets impregnated.
I wouldn't have minded her sticking around a little while longer, but she is sort of a dead man walking once she gets facehuggered. So
she never walks again. She stumbles into a room and then pop. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's economy. I don't know.
Well, it is, but I think you lose something by sprinting through the alien life cycle, because that is something that I do like, and the fact that it's so alien and so gross, and yet has this veneer of biological plausibility to it. And David's right to zero in on just the question of what is that baby chestburster eating when it's hiding in the ship to grow by like 8,000% mass in 36 hours. But there's it's also about how does it control its acid blood, but.
I mean, that's how the first movie works. It doesn't eat anything that we don't, he goes from bursting out of John Hurt to fully formed eating Harry Dean Stanton.
I know, but there is a gap there where it's off screen for longer, doing we don't know what.
It's hitting the rations. Yes.
Yeah. If you can hit up the rations, if this thing can eat metal and synthesize that mass into body mass somehow, would that be the most alien thing about it? maybe not. But when you compress it all into real time, I don't know, it pushes on like a loose door in my suspension of disbelief and just falls right through it. Where now I'm suddenly very aware of the artifice of how this is all being framed.
I suspect the reason that it happened is just simply Fede didn't want to, he didn't want to slow the pace. He just wanted to keep ratcheting the tension and accelerate. And that was more important than, lore, as dorks would say. So
it's the same reason why Han Solo and Chewbacca are just hanging out above Jakku when the Millennium Falcon happens to fly into them. It's like, you could do a cut here to just imply a change of time that would give you a little bit of room to fudge this stuff, but they'd rather keep up the pace.
Yeah, that's more important.
Scene-to-scene flow. Yeah, I mean, it bothers me in both cases. I'm going to give them that. It worked on the audience, therefore I would say that thing works, even though it didn't work on me.
You don't have to arrive at that issue at all if you're smart in the script phase.
True. And this is something we've been on. We've done several Alien episodes by now, and my always banging on. The first two Alien movies are just ingenious at the script level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is, I guess, ultimately, like I like this film. It's good. It's solid. It's fun. I think I just sort of brush up against the fact that it does seem a little bit, business as usual to me. And it's a lot of the same, kind of things that we've seen. And it just sort of lacks that identity for me. It's Fede Alvarez also made The Evil Dead. I guess it's a remake. I don't know if it's a new continuity, a reboot.
It's a reboot.
It's 11 years old now, I believe. And it's a very similar film to this. It is nasty and mean and very bloody and very effective, but it does kind of ultimately sort of live in the shadow of the great film that it is imitating. Great films in both cases, I guess, that it's kind of just taking its beats from and sort of lacks identity as a result from me. And I think it achieves similar ends. I think it brought the Evil Dead franchise back a little bit. I think that Ash versus the Evil Dead and the one from last year don't get made if his Evil Dead film doesn't do pretty well. So I guess it's net positive and a solid film, but it's just kind of not going to live in memory for me.
But I also think there's something lamentable about how you're right. This does feel like business as usual, but then realizing that we've never gotten business as usual from this franchise before. It's just, this really makes clear and crystallizes what business as usual would be.
And it's not so bad.
Yeah.
That's better than half of them. It's better than half of the movies in the franchise, but it makes the whole franchise less interesting somehow. Less of a risk.
That's where I am on it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I just realized with your Evil Dead comparison? I was thinking through as you were talking about, and I was thinking, okay, what is the identity of the remake of Evil Dead that would give it its own excuse for existing? And I started thinking about the brother and sister relationship and sort of the detox story and that stuff. And I like that. I think that's kind of interesting. But then I realized that Alien Romulus is also kind of a brother-sister relationship that is sort of the heart of the movie. It's the thing I cared about the most character-wise. So I guess Fede just really likes that dynamic.
He does.
Yeah, and that works. It works.
Yeah.
It's solid. It's not a direct remake. It just has, many of the most successful elements brought back there.
Right.
That's why I say legacy sequel. It's kind of a legacy sequel if it's not Ripley, but rather the alien and Ash are the legacy characters that return, and all the props, of course, and things that you bring back. It's like Ghostbusters Afterlife in that way,
right?
Which might be the most damning thing I've said this whole episode.
It is interesting to view it as a legacy sequel from the perspective of the synthetics, where it's Ash passing on the mantle of the malicious robot betrayer to Andy. But yeah, that's not that much in there. The sibling stuff is definitely in there. That's an interesting sort of spin on the dynamic to bring into a franchise that's been very much about motherhood for so long.
Yeah,
it's a different family dynamic. It doesn't fit quite as well with the, creation and parentage and birth and all that, to be going, laterally across a generation instead of from creator to
even
created.
the Prometheus films are keyed into that, though. Yeah,
Very much so.
Yeah. So that, I guess, that is kind of that is what passes as for innovation here, which is sort of just plot. And that's I mean, one of the reasons this works on its own, though.
Good story is good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's not such a bad thing. It makes it sound like such a bad thing. It's just that this is one franchise that had managed to survive for 45 years without being codified down to this beat by beat level. And so,
a bad version of this movie would be a bummer. Yeah. I think it would be a real bummer if we had like 2 more movies that are basically this, level of innovation, but maybe not as competently put together. Yeah. Or carefully created.
Well, if we got the Alien versions of The Predator.
Yeah, exactly. Or Evil Dead Rise, honestly. That movie's fine, but it's not exciting. It's just sort of business as usual.
So this is closer to a Prey, which is a pretty good movie on its own terms.
Prey, I think, is even. I got Prey as probably like the second best Predator film easily. I think this is not. I don't think it's quite fucking with Prey levels.
I'm a huge booster for Predator 2, and it's absolutely insane version of Los Angeles. But I will agree with clearly Prey is the second best movie in that franchise.
This movie wouldn't have come into theaters if Prey hadn't hit so hard as streaming. This was intended.
I hope Trachtenberg gets to do another big one in the theater. That'd be great.
He deserves to. Yeah, and it'll probably be another Predator film.
I've got a list here that I was thinking about rapidly going through. I'm not going to do it because it would literally kill me of Easter eggs in this movie, of things.
There's a lot.
Things that are reminiscent of the other movies, and I'm just looking through the list. It's like the alien roars in Rain's face, just like Alien 3. An android gets torn in half and brought back. It's just every scene has something that is reminiscent of other. So I can't really do that. We'd be here all day.
I think there were 2 or 3 recreations of the woman cowers against the wall with the alien sticks in her face, shot at the very end. 3.
Mm-hmm.
But okay. Well, you're right. We can't go through all of those because we've already gone over an hour here. We'll come back. I mean, David, you can come back and talk to us about the Alien TV show when that comes out.
Oh yeah, no, Holly, I'm excited for that.
They've been threatening that for 5 years now, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll actually happen. Yeah. I think when they were making Romulus, I assumed it was that, and then it's like, oh no, it's a movie, it's different. And I was like, oh, well, okay.
It's called Alien Earth, right? I'm not so sure about the Earth part.
I have seen that somewhere.
Well, maybe that's just fake news. I don't know.
No, I've definitely seen that somewhere, and I don't know if they'll stick with that. It wasn't always that. It feels pretty uninspired, so we'll see. But no, I did, John. You at a certain point this summer started saying we should probably do an Alien Romulus episode, and for a while when you're talking about it, I just thought you meant that the TV show was coming out because I didn't realize this was happening.
Yeah, it snuck by. Well, this was, I think, initially greenlit as a streaming show, like Prey, I believe was the idea, and they've started to see that's actually a bad idea.
There's so much money left on the table, especially after this opening did so well. Before we end here, can I just rapid fire through some fun things I noticed, just little things?
Right.
The movie is 20 years after Alien and 37 before Aliens, so it's kind of right in the middle, lore-wise. Yeah. The Jackson star, which is the colony, that planet is 65 light years from Earth, and for context, LV-426 is 39. So this is much further out than we've ever technically been as far as the outer reaches of the Alien franchise. Okay. And finally, a little thing that I noticed is, did you guys notice who the father of the child is?
Was it the cousin?
It's the annoying douchebag guy who hates androids. He has a little, tender moment with, what's her name at some point. Mm-hmm. And I was looking online on Reddit last night, and Fede Alvarez confirmed this.
That's interesting because in reading a review of it, which I didn't get this in the movie, partly because a lot of the sound mix in the first 20 minutes was I missed a lot of dialogue.
Oh yeah, that was it was very loud and the accents, and it was a little difficult for me to pick up all the exposition.
But I believe that he was supposed to be the first cousin of the pregnant lady and the brother. So
yeah. I guess
so. He knocked up his cousin.
Yeah, you're on a space colony.
Maybe the thing she injected didn't do anything, and it was just a cousin situation.
Well, I'm just wondering now with that and all the brother sister stuff. Like, what is his relationship with his sister?
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Just end on a piece of slander there.
Very good. Very good. All right. But I don't know. It's a thumbs up, right? Mostly, I think across the boards, varying degrees of we liked it.
I think I would call, I don't like doing numbers, but like 8 out of 10, good, thumbs up, some problems, but oh my goodness, am I so glad to have an Alien movie that I can, without too many reservations, say this is good movie, you should see it. Yeah. You'll probably
you can
like
take
it.
Home and show your mother. Yeah, right.
I'm pretty sure my mom hates Alien 3, so
a lot of people hate Alien 3.
Yeah, it's yeah.
I think Alien 3 is okay with being hated. That's fine. It's an okay.
Oh yeah,
it's
Alien 3 is
fuck you.
It's smoking on wearing a Nirvana shirt and it hates everybody.
Yeah. No, this is the best of the not masterpiece Alien movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, would you say that, or it sounds like maybe Prometheus?
Oh, I got Covenant. I'm a big Covenant.
What
fan.
What the
Covenant's
fuck?
my number 3 with a bullet. Love it.
Covenant above Alien 3 Assembly Cut, above Prometheus. Covenant.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh. Just so we understand, fun. Covenant is the second Ridley Scott. That one?
Third Ridley Scott. Technically.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a blast.
What? Okay.
Just Danny McBride standing? What?
He's fun. It's fun. He's in it. But no, it's mostly Fassbender. All the crazy David stuff is great, when he's making out with himself. He's, let me help you finger the piccolo. All that weird, all that shit. So good.
I've asked you to defend Covenant twice, and this is the first thing you've mentioned both times. So.
It's so great. He's got this cathedral weird Cthulhu births going on down under, it's all the stuff with him destroying the engineers with their own biobomb, and then I guess eventually killing Noomi Rapace horribly in some way that was alluded to.
That's mean. That's very mean.
That Amy Seamet's scene on the planet is fucking incredible. It's really scary. It's the scariest any of these movies have been since the first one, I think. And
that one's.
And it's just James Franco burning to death in a cryo bed in the beginning. It's just top to bottom great stuff. How is everyone not on board with this one?
I will say I love the backburster. Because why would it always come out of, if it's breaking through ribs to get out, why would it come specifically through the front in the chest in this one? It would come out wherever it wants, right? So I appreciated that detail. Yeah. Does it bother you that the end of the movie is back to Xenomorph shenanigans then? If David is your...
I think, it's...
Oh, you don't like
it's
that?
a bummer, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't like that very much at all.
Okay.
It's kind of just like the slowest part of the film. I was like, let's get it over with. Get to the David reveal, please.
Get back to the fingering.
As I mentioned to you guys earlier, I watched that movie for the first time last night after coming home from Romulus.
Yeah.
How did it compare?
I think Romulus is better overall, partly because that Simon scene that he was referring to is such the highlight of the movie that it peaks really early for me.
Yeah.
But that is great. Genuinely scary thing. It's a new dynamic just by having characters doing things differently. But she's
scared as fuck.
Yeah,
man.
she's reacting like with cowardice in a way, not like in a humorous Hudson way, but in a way that also she's following the quarantine protocols in a way that Ripley is advocating for, but also while shitting her pants the whole time.
Yeah.
So then she's like backtracking on it because she knows she did it for the wrong reasons, but it's nasty stuff, and I like that. And then it kind of goes off the rails for me. But man, this Noomi Rapace's off-screen death makes the Hicks and Newt thing.
It's so cruel.
In terms of cruelty.
It's mean.
Yeah.
They did that. People hated they did that Hicks and Newt. They didn't do that to Ripley. Like, she was the main character of the prior movie.
You just said as like I think you meant it as a positive character thing, is that she's following the quarantine protocol, so she's smart, like a good thing.
Oh,
they're
she's
wandering
not smart,
around in the first act with just like those little floppy hats on, and they get a pathogen through the ear. Like that almost felt like Ridley Scott's reaction to the first Prometheus. It's like, oh, you don't like that they took off their helmets? Well, fuck you. They're not even going to have helmets. They're just going to walk around.
Even when they're dragging two sick people back to the shuttle in an emergency situation of their landing party, the other people are not like, doing like a bandana around their mouth or anything.
Right.
No, maybe I meant the conflict in the original Alien movie where Ripley wants to follow quarantine protocol and not let Kane back onto the ship.
Yeah, that's good.
Simon's character is arguably just doing that by trying to isolate the thing, but she also can see what's going on in there. And it's a different type of horror and a different type of character dynamic that we've seen in 6 other movies.
Right.
That you didn't have to like introduce any new alien human hybrids to get to that.
My point was simply that in Alien 1, that Ripley's attitude is, smart and understandable and good writing. And in Covenant, they try and do the same thing after all this idiocy. It's like, I don't buy that they're suddenly smart and doing quarantine.
She's scared. She's being a coward. That's why she's leaning on it. It's good. The bad version of it is Charlize Theron in Prometheus, where it's presented as, isn't she evil, not letting the infected people back on the ship? It's like, no, she's right. Do what she's saying. And the movie doesn't realize that. That's weird. I mostly just like how that movie looks and feels. It's pretty dumb, I have to admit.
Do you like the Charlize refuses to serpentine out of the way of the donut ship? I'm outrunning this spaceship.
It's a
I'm dying. That's
hole. I don't think that it's that simple. I think and yes, I would probably make stupid mistakes if I was trying to run away from a collapsing spaceship. I imagine.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. There's dumber shit in that movie. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. If that was the dumbest thing in the movie, it would get a pass.
Yeah.
But anyway, I like them all. I like every Alien film to some degree or another. And I'm glad that it's back. They're going to make more Alien stuff now. I mean, the show, I guess, maybe they're making that. But, I don't know. I think they can't not make another film now after this was such a big hit. And I think people are ready for it. I think this is the prime the audience.
I am so thrilled. I'm over the moon to be in this place with this franchise after the lows of the last, I don't know, however long, depending on how you feel about Prometheus and Covenant.
Well, I want them to still be weird, is my hope. That's my real wish for the going forward. It's not more of this kind of Romulus. Romulus has to be the base.
Yeah,
and
no more Easter,
please.
No more of this like Force Awakens Easter egg waterboarding. I don't need it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Please. I mean, I'm not entirely sure how much there is to the Alien universe, but let's give it a shot. Let's see what's out there and how weird we can get and what kind of new horrors await out in space. That sounds great.
I think that is what Prometheus and Covenant were trying to do on paper, but it turns out it's just kind of different tints on the skin of the xenomorph.
Well, there's been recent. Have you guys played the recent video games like Dark Descent or?
Nothing since Isolation. And
okay, yeah. There's some new ideas and things that they play with that are nothing like things that we haven't seen before. So I think there's plenty of room to play.
I mean, I still want to do like aliens land in a zoo, and all the aliens then are like
alien
it's a
giraffe.
snake alien. It's a rhino alien. Yeah, I want that.
Yes, I want the promise that
you want your
Hasbro
Kenner
made
toys
us in 1988.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what I want. Yes, that is exactly what I want.
I remember seeing the gorilla one that spit like water. You filled it up with water.
Fun.
And, yeah,
fun. Do it.
That's
please.
so cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe Alien Earth will have all this stuff. There's zoos on Earth.
Oh yeah. Okay, now I'm on board.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with that promise, I guess that signing off here, right?
Yeah.
Last.
Oh yeah. Last.
There's no joke to be made. There's too many of us. We all made it.
Do you guys want some cornbread?